And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is Monday, March 6th, 2023. My name is Sean Phillips. As always, I'm joined alongside my two co-hosts, Mr. Andy Van Bever and Travis Kirkendall. And together we are the voice of reason. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
I feel happier seeing the beautiful bearded wonder that is Sean Phillips on my screen, knowing that I don't have to drive the ship tonight, and I can go back to letting Travis be the co-pilot, and I can just sit back here in my little comfy chair and just be sitting here enjoying the aurora borealis, and
Yeah, I like your background.
yeah.
Looks good it looks a lot better than the diarrhea you had up there about 2 weeks ago.
Here we go. All right. Okay, John.
Hey, you might actually look out because looks like Frank Clark's a free agent, so I don't
Yes, I saw that.
There's no one on the roster that's actively hit a woman, so I might be able to.
Well, go ahead and let's go ahead and get the Mahomes brother thing out of your system right now. Just go ahead and get it out of your system.
I have
Jackson Mahomes is a hoe, so I mean I don't like Jackson Mahomes. I don't like Patrick Mahomes' wife, but yeah.
Well, Patrick is the one that keeps paying for them to
here we go
stay in Kansas City.
Here we go.
Basically, if you like Patrick Mahomes, you like what Jackson Mahomes did and is being accused of. That is how it works.
Yep. Now,
Travis, how are you doing?
Doing good. Haven't been doing a whole lot, as I told you on the phone. Maybe I'll tell you about it after the show, but
okay.
I've had some time off. I've had some time kind of relaxing, so pretty boring weekend. Can't complain.
Your poor meat probably beat to a pulpit at this point.
You have no idea.
Oh man, we had
a lot of dog walks. A lot of.
I saw that
right?
you had the good weather for it this weekend.
Yeah, it's been nice. I mean, there's been days I've been walking them like twice a day. It's been pretty.
Travis, you would actually really like this. I have Spotify, which for our listeners, you can find our podcast there on Spotify.
Of course.
But so the entire Lord of the Rings audiobooks are on Spotify.
Really?
And now, get this though. It's not just some guy reading the book. These are, bar none, the most in-depth. It's almost like you're watching the movie, but it's the book. So anytime that they are like on horseback, you hear like
really,
and like it's also cool because this was definitely done after the movies were made because they use a ton of the original music from the movies while he's reading. And there's a beautiful path. Every morning I take Xerxes for a walk. Most mornings I've tried to, and it's been how I've started my morning is putting my headphones on and listening to that while I kind of walk through the wooded area of Beverly Hills. And I listen to that those audiobooks,
so
and they're
so
good.
Is there any, I mean, is it so different characters for each voice, or is it just one guy reading the whole thing? Or?
So it's what's crazy about it is I think it's one guy. However, he does. I mean, he's like Andy Serkis level talented of doing voices and impersonations.
Okay.
But what's really cool is like, so in the nerd out in me, in the Fellowship of the Ring, when the wraiths are talking and you actually like, it's nuts because they use like what would be the audio from the movie of like the real sharp hissing sounds. So it actually like kind of scared the shit out of me because I was walking, I was like half asleep and I'm like tired, carrying my coffee, and it's the scene when the wraiths sneak up on Strider and the hobbits, and you actually hear like this real screeching noise, and I was like, I wasn't paying attention. It was like, whoa, like it really did wake me up. I cannot recommend it enough. It's on Spotify. It's completely free. I just literally typed in Lord of the Rings audiobooks, and it's one playlist that's got all three of the books.
It's awesome.
I bet you the total playtime on that is probably about what, 5 or 6 days probably.
I think I'm not quite done with the first book yet, but I think it's like I think I'm on like chapter 17, and each chapter is close to an hour long. So yeah, I mean it's up there, but it's phenomenal. I actually, um, Tony and I recently, it's like a good bad thing. We recently just discovered this bargain bookstore
I
that's
saw that on Tony's
I
story
not
today.
too
saw.
I
far.
saw that on Tony's
But
story
the
today.
sad thing is, it's closing down
Oh
in
no!
June. They've been kind of priced out of their location. They've been there for over 70 years. The guy was talking about it's a family-owned business.
Wow.
Um, but I actually got we both got some pretty cool gems there. I've added to my collection. Again, nerd out moment before we kind of dive in. For some of the listeners, and you guys know I'm a big Harry Potter nerd. Um, but they had this like collectibles section, and so back in like 2004, they did not even Scholastic, who is the American publisher of the books, but in the UK, it's a company called like Bloomsbury,
Mhm.
and they did in 2004 a limited print of the books that had been released, and it was called the quote unquote adult print. So it's these book covers that are drastically different than anything else. They were made to appeal to adults, to get adults to read the books. And
Really?
they had the third one in almost perfect condition. And because they're closing, they had this giant sale, and I was able to kind of add it to my collection. It's by far the coolest book that I own. Um, so now I'm gonna have to be on the hunt to find the rest of them that exist, because like they're so rare. When I look them up, like I saw a tattered one that was like they couldn't really get a price on it because they're so uncommon. Like it was pretty wild.
So it's basically a lot more. Would you describe the artwork as like more graphic, or is there more detail, or how would you describe the artwork?
I'm actually gonna have Tony walk over and hand it to me so I can kind of show you guys the cover. Because it is really neat. Let me get rid of my background so that you guys can actually see this really quick. Choose virtual background. None. Okay. So I'll hold this up for you guys. It's still kind of packaged away. Sorry for listeners that can't see this, but for the ones that are watching. So it's a very unique
Nice.
cover. Like it's even got the
Oh, J.K.
transphobe on the
Yeah,
back,
J.K.
you know,
Rowling.
and her glory. So yeah,
That's actually pretty cool.
yeah, it's really, I've never seen anything like it before. And like I said, it's almost in perfect condition. Um, so that's what I get for being with Tony. As long as I now get excitement over old books. So that's where we're
That's
at in our
good. That's
relationship.
good. That's good. Next thing you know, you're gonna be sitting
That's your
on the on your back porch there in a rocking chair and watching your Bug
that's your new
Zapper at night.
collection
So
then? You're collecting books. It's your
Yeah,
hobby.
that is my new hobby now is I'm collecting books. So the hemorrhoids will start probably next week, as that is my
oh
lineage of
man,
getting older.
gentlemen, I do
V,
want to.
you be proud of me.
What's that?
My vinyl collection's growing.
Really, very nice.
Yeah.
I have not been to the record store in the new calendar year yet, so I'm busy top to bottom, but I'm ready to
The
go.
place down in Delmar is the best one.
I've heard of yes, yep, I heard about that one down there. I've
My
heard.
dad used to go there as a kid. It's been around forever.
Mm-hmm. Gentlemen,
I
one other
love
thing I want to share with you
vinyl
guys
music.
before we go on tonight. Welcome to episode 100.
We're
We
three
are
digits now?
We
We
are
are
we
at
are three. We
3
are.
digits.
Let me just go and put this out there for so Sean can make jokes. We are 3 deep. Yes. So
Well,
Are
if
we
I
gonna
know
start
anything
making
about
money
college.
now?
no, I mean we are up.
Okay.
I just did look at our. I looked at our Spotify page and we are up to 41 cents on our monetization. So
Ooh.
41 cents is it's 41
That'll get
cents.
you half a hot dog at Fastlane. So that's we're getting some.
Half a hot dog. I tell you what, when you come into town, Sean, we'll go over there and we'll split that sucker right on up. So,
Hey, well, I know a couple of lot lizards that would love to get half a hot dog from
oh my
old
gosh,
Fastlane.
yes, yep.
Well,
But
so as we kind of uh, you know celebrate and not celebrate our 100th episode, um, I mean that really to put it into perspective for a lot of individuals, and I kind of talked about this last week.
hello,
No, sorry, I had a
scared me there for a
little
second.
whisper in the background. No, if you really think about it, 104 episodes of this show would technically mean we're running on 2 full years
We're
of the
almost there.
program.
We're almost
And
there.
we are getting very, very close.
Wild.
To put it into perspective for a lot of people, again, I had mentioned this a couple weeks ago when we had talked, but for a lot of shows, a lot of podcasts, there's always the people that talk about how there's too many podcasts out there of like no one needs to know about a 3-parter on why 2 ply is better for your ass than 1 ply. You can find that out in about 4 seconds or so.
Oh
But
God!
the
Yeah.
unique thing is so many of them are started and then stopped within the first
Month.
1, 2, or 3 episodes.
Yeah.
We have maintained a great level of success with this show and will continue to do so. I can speak from my own personal experience. Things got kind of crazy. We had a lot of moving pieces. We've had all of us, you think about it, all of us from the time the show has started has moved locations.
I didn't think about that. You are correct.
Yeah. All of us have. V, you moved from Illinois back to Missouri. Travis, you moved from the hood of Chicago to not so far the hood of Chicago.
Can we talk about the episodes when Travis would walk around in the neighborhood and walk it? Well, you didn't have a dog time. He was out walking in the neighborhood doing the podcast while walking, and we wanted to make sure that he was still alive at the end of the episode and everything.
Yeah, he had Chicago Fireflies, aka sparks from that 40, just popping off just right around his head.
Hey, it's hard out here, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
no, but
It's wild. Getting my conceal and carry this weekend.
Attaboy.
Gotta be ready.
And if you think about it, that's a huge milestone for so much that we have kind of been going through and doing it. So I know that in the coming weeks here, as things kind of on my end get a little bit easier because things are picking up. I can't go in too much detail just because of the amount of non-disclosures that were signed, but I am very happy to announce that the next couple of days I will actually be spending some time away on a film set of a very, very large, very unique production that even a year ago, I was actually looking at this. So it is March 6th, 2023. It was, I think, March 18th of 2022 is when I visited LA for the first time.
Wow.
And since then,
Wow.
so many changes have happened. I've gotten engaged. I've got another baby on the way. Julian turned 4, which is insane.
Way to go,
But to put it in perspective, and now I'm writing a TV show. These are for V. I know you have some of our younger your students that listen from time to time, and for some of our listeners, the cool thing about this show is that we have persevered through a bunch of crazy milestones, and we've maintained and grown our friendships that the three of us have together. And I'm super excited for once we're really truly able, because you guys don't our schedules are all so hectic and so crazy. But once we are kind of really able to iron some of these coals out, the final product that this show can become and will become is something I am truly excited to present to you guys, and something that you as listeners should also be proud of as well.
Exactly. I just wanted. I still go back to the meeting in October of 20. I guess it was 21 or 20, but it was October of 20, and at McDinger's and Sean just up and approached me and was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." I never would have really thought that we would have gotten to this place, and I'm ready to do 100 more. I've always said this, that this is my weekly therapy. This is my I look forward to this, and we're still trying to figure out. Last week, Sean, Travis, and I were still trying to figure out who are 9% of our listeners who are in Germany. We're still trying to figure that out, but that thing blows my mind, is that we have 9% of our listenership comes from comes from Germany.
We have to be part of like some American social studies experiment or
We have to be
some college
something that's
survey
like
or
Either that
something.
or like the Hitler Youth of Germany is
we
just like
we
listens to
discussed that
these
last week
Greek
too.
crackers.
Even better.
So, but jump on in with our topic tonight. It's a fun one.
DeSantis 2024.
DeSantis 2024, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not ready for bigger, better Donald Trump, you will be. Because what has come out in the last 2 weeks, what is developing down in Florida, if it doesn't frighten you, it should. And I'm sure all of our right-leaning listeners will probably hate us even more after. If they haven't stopped listening to us, they will after this episode. But a couple of things that are flying through that brother DeSantis wants to push. I guess we'll go for the more popular one first. Is that DeSantis promises Florida will control Disney content, and this board that he is forming is going to quote unquote clamp down on woke ideology in cartoons. You know, basically Ron DeSantis, he's went out on this happened last Monday. He appointed a board to oversee Disney. The Central Florida Tourism Oversight District was created, which includes a number of very, very right-winged people. And this board is supposed to handle and discuss the infrastructure and maintenance and things that go on within Disney. But now he's wanting to take it a step further, and so DeSantis makes this statement. He says, when you lose your way, you've got to have people that are going to tell you the truth. So we hope that they can get back on. But I think all of these board members very much would like to see the type of entertainment that all families can appreciate.
So, do you guys want to know? Take a guess. I would love to see a guess of, even with some of the special tax exempt status that Disney has in the state of Florida, how much money do you think that the Walt Disney Company paid to Florida in 2021 in taxes?
I saw the number. It was ridiculous, but
go ahead. I'd probably be way off.
I don't remember what it was.
$780 million in taxes from Walt Disney World was paid to Florida. The interesting thing about this with DeSantis, for me at least, is I've done some I've tried to find some of the specifics that Disney World is doing in this woke ideology that Disney World is producing, and I can't find anything that's out of the ordinary. And it's funny how a lot of this pressure has come from what the Walt Disney Company, which primarily operates out of Los Angeles, California.
Right.
What they do here is kind of what is causing Ron DeSantis and the rest of these Florida Republicans to, have this go woke, go broke crap push through. So it's actually rather interesting as I've been reading and kind of looking up on what exactly I'm going to get some specifics, because I know there are some. So I'm going to, while you guys are talking, pull up some of the specifics of what the beef is with DeSantis.
Well, from what I think a lot of it, Disney has been pretty outspoken about a lot of the things that DeSantis and even Republicans and that whole far right movement, it's kind of been a back and forth. And I don't think it's, again, like you were saying, you don't really know specifically what cartoons are referring to or what these specific woke ideologies are, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Disney has publicly come out and said stuff against DeSantis and vice versa. And I think this is kind of his he has a personal vendetta against Disney now, which...
Well, so do you think that this is, and I've heard some sources say this, do you think that this is resistance to the LGBTQ equality thing? I mean, is this Is this DeSantis getting up on his white stallion and putting on the white hat and charging out?
Are we talking about? So are we talking about this? The don't say gay law? Are we? Is that
Well,
what
I
you're
mean,
getting at here, or are
we'll
you talking
get to
about?
that. We'll get to that law next. But I mean, you
You're
know,
talking about just in general.
in general, I mean, what he's all of this came about though with the remove the what was it? It was the Walt Disney had a special what there you said that tax thing. If I remember correctly, they had some kind of special tax district entity that Disney World wasn't going to be like any part of any county or something like that. If I'm remembering this correctly,
I don't know the specifics. I just know like they have their own district and they pay for like
right?
I'm reading here they pay for like the fire protection, road maintenance, policing, like they pay for a lot of the stuff of that district. Like the taxpayers don't pay for the public stuff. Disney does.
Well,
And the what I was reading here is like if that was the case and they got rid of Disney's special deal to have like their own district, the taxpayers of that county, that district would then have to pay for all that stuff that Disney's had to pay. And there was also I was reading like a $1 billion debt.
Bond
Yeah,
debt.
the district also carries roughly 1 billion in debt. If the district had been abolished, that debt would have been transferred to the counties. So I mean,
that
I'm
was
assuming taxpayers would have had to pick up that note.
well,
Is what I'm assuming would have happened.
right, exactly. And this is, I mean, don't
I'm
you?
curious what the people there in that district
Well,
feel about it.
that's how that's. Do you really want? To me, this doesn't make any sense to me. DeSantis is taking on. I mean, this has got to be a large percentage of their tax revenue. I mean, Florida. This has got to be.
Well, think of how big Disney is for
Yeah,
Florida. I mean, how many people go to Florida
just for
for
Disney.
Disney?
For Disney. I
I
mean,
mean, people not just in the United States.
So
I mean,
many.
my
yeah,
wife
worldwide.
and her family, they would come every year from Venezuela to go to Disney when they were kids. Like people from all over the world go to Disney. So yeah, it kind of blows my mind that I mean, I say I'm surprised. I'm really not, but I guess I'm surprised by how far he's really going after him. Like he's seems like he's not letting up.
Well, and this is something that, from what I'm reading here, with some of the articles that I had set behind, this is something that the the state is. So the name of this district is called the Reedy Creek Improvement District, is what Disney operated under for more than 50 years. And so now this 5 member board that he's hand picking is going to basically take care of. And I don't, but here's the thing that I don't get. Where does he think that, okay, so now that I manage the property, now I get to manage the content? I don't,
That's
I,
what I want to ask you. Is let's look at this from a constitutional standpoint. Does he have the constitutional right to control the content of a private company?
no, 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 that, I mean, he's not sitting on,
I'm surprised Disney if
he's not,
I'm surprised they're not taking legal action against the state of Florida for this.
well,
I'm
that,
surprised there's not a lawsuit.
the,
There's got to be one coming. If it comes to that, I guarantee there would be a lawsuit.
well, their ground, so this is their grounds that said, lawmakers changed course amid concerns of a disruption of Reedy Creek's debt, and we talked about the debt there, and contracts violated the state law that created the special tax district. And DeSantis appointees will be in charge of the district's long-standing powers to tax, build, and borrow money for projects and services around Disney's vast footprint in Orange and Osceola counties. So, and which they can do, they can do, okay? Because
Yeah.
any state, any federal or state, I mean, that's basically it's eminent domain is what that is. Eminent domain allows a state to take private property and use it and maintain it for public use. Okay, so and to me that's still kind of shaky. I mean that is protected underneath the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution for state and federal government to be able to do eminent domain, but that's where it stops right there.
You think there'd be a legal battle there? Not even, I'm not even talking about the controlling of content. Just Florida trying to do that. If Florida moved to do that against Disney, do you think Disney would do a lawsuit? Do you think they have a case? You
The,
understand this more. That's why
oh
I'm picking your
well,
brain on it.
this is to me. This is where the whole idea of eminent domain is. You have to prove, the government has to prove that this land is being used for public use. Okay, it's a to me. There's too many ifs ands, but for number one, this is a private entity that over, I don't know how long they've been in Florida. I don't know if you have that
Oh,
stat down there,
years.
but I mean,
I don't.
obviously over 50 years.
Let me Google
So
it.
this is privately owned property. Which, on a side note, if you guys didn't know this or not, but a piece of history, Walt Disney actually looked at putting Disney World in St. Louis. I don't know if you guys were aware of that or not, but that was
Yes,
that.
and do you know why he didn't?
It was something with the Bush family, wasn't it?
It was the Bush family.
Yeah, because the
Yeah,
Bush, yeah,
because Walt Disney said, "Hey, we'll do this, but I'm not going to serve alcohol."
yeah.
And then the Bush family said,
Screw you and the horse you rode in
"Are you
on.
out of your fucking mind? Like
Yeah,
it's St.
right.
Louis, like there's going to be alcohol." So he said, "Cool, take it to Florida."
So
Real quick, Walt Disney World Resort opened October 1st, 1971.
okay, so yeah, so definitely, so you're over half a century here, and so they bought. I'm assuming that then they approached the county, and I'm assuming that I've never been to Disney World, so I don't know what the setup is, but I'm assuming the area that it was probably, I don't want to say swampland, probably before oceanfront property in Orlando and all that stuff. So they probably got it at a good deal, and they present the business plan to whatever county board or whatever state board, and they saw dollar signs from the get go, and so yes, we're going to sell this land to Disney. Okay, so now you're going to make the roundabout turn of saying, okay, in the name of eminent domain, we're going to take over the maintenance. So they can't, the way that I'm reading this article, and I may be totally on a line, and if anybody wants to, on the chat wants to correct me on this, I don't know if Alex is on tonight or not, but the way I read eminent domain laws is that if they can take that over for all things going into and around the park, but not in the park, if that makes sense. So
Okay, I think I follow.
any kind of improvements in or around the park, anything from sewage, sewage removal to infrastructure, roads going into, um, any kind of if it's like anything to preserve environmental areas, anything like that, and it's got to be within minimal range. Eminent domain is such a, because I've seen eminent domain cases that have won and then have lost. For example, just as a side note, um, it was so it would have been 4 years ago. This electric company was wanting to run its power, and it has run its power lines down through Iowa into northeastern Missouri, and then it's come across east central Illinois. Pike County, and this was in the newspapers for weeks because I remember this. Pike County did not want these farmers did not want to grant. They fought the government on eminent domain to run these power lines through Pike County, and they won. And how they won in court, I didn't really follow it that closely, but it's kind of amusing. If you go up to Quincy on Route 72, you will see at the Adams, about 3 miles before the Adams County Pike County line, the lines will take literally a 90-degree turn, go across I-72, and they go north to Brown County, go around Pike County, and they cross after it crosses over the Illinois River. I'm not making this up. You can go see this.
Sounds expensive.
After it crosses over the Illinois River, where the Pike County line ends, it turns back south and crosses the highway. It crosses the highway twice. Once going to avoid Pike County, and then after it's past Pike County, it comes back across the road. It is,
Jeez.
and I mean it, and so Yeah, to answer your earlier question, Travis, I do think that Disney can fight this if, but they've got to make a Florida's got to make a a pretty convincing case in court to say, we're going to justify eminent domain, but then you come up with that whole tax liability thing. What was that? What was that number you said that could be dumped out onto the counties? I forgot what you said that tax bill was going to
The
look.
you talking about the debt?
Yeah, how much did you?
1 billion in
And
debt.
they're not. And I think Florida. This may be, and I think this may be bold talk from DeSantis, just trying to throw his weight around, showing that he can control corporate America.
That's what I think more of
And
it, and
yeah,
more of it is.
and see, this to me, this is a whole power play for 2024. I can make Disney do what I want to do. Here is, I mean, we were talking about this at school today. Casey Davis, who I teach with, we should have had her on that. She was ranting and raving. She's like, I just want to sit back with a box of popcorn, just because this is DeSantis, trying to stage himself. Everything from here on out is.
Well, if you think it would be a pretty big political victory for him because if you
If he
think of the
wins,
whole like
that's if he.
far left, let's just take the left in general, right? Whatever opposes DeSantis and what the conservatives believe, Disney is a big face of that. If
Mhm.
quote unquote, defeat the face of that, I mean, that's a pretty big political win for him. And I think
Well,
again, I think it's a big talking point. What I wanted to ask you, going back to, and this is just, I don't see this happening, but when you were talking about eminent domain and saying that, say, if the state of Florida won this, if you said they would be responsible for maintaining stuff like the roads and you said around and inside that
not
district or just
inside,
around that
not just
district?
around. I mean, because Disney still operates as private property.
Okay.
Because Disney will still exist as private property. Now, if Ron DeSantis wants to, I mean, he can make it. He could make a bold case. It would be a dumb case because it would pretty much ruin. I mean, if he says, "Hey, I want to build a 4-lane freeway right down through the Magic Kingdom because it's a new superhighway we're going to build," and they could present that. I mean, that's part of eminent domain too, but I don't think he's that dumb. I mean, if he, I mean, there are I'm sure there are plenty of southern states. I mean, your everything from your Gulf Shores, Alabama, to Corpus Christi, Texas, to a lot of those southern destinations that would say, "Hey, we'll take you. Come on over. We'll take you. If you don't want
Oh,
if you don't want to put up with that anymore, we'll take you." And this.
yeah, I'd be curious if DeSantis went through with this and the state of Florida actually started getting wins against Disney. I'd be curious to see if Disney just packed up and left Florida.
Well, I mean, they've got Disneyland out in California. I mean, Shauna, that's not that.
Right, but Disney
Di-
World might.
Disney World is much, from what I understand, Disney World is much larger than Disneyland. Disneyland's like
Believe so.
the Six Flags of, right?
Um, I think Disney World is probably like 3 to 4 times the size
Mm-hmm.
of what Disneyland is.
Mm-hmm.
It's massive. Now, if you tell a Californian that Disneyland is anything like Six Flags, that you might actually get stabbed.
That's a fighting
Um,
word. Yes, those are fighting.
But no, so what I have kind of been um, told about Disney World and Disneyland and some of the comparisons, the benefit that Disneyland has is that there's a ton of IP and certain things that California and Disneyland. So this is one of the weird things about productions and some of the licensing for a lot of these things. So at Disney World, for example, you will not see Marvel superheroes at Disney World. The Marvel superheroes are franchised by, and they are at Universal. However,
I didn't know that.
they are not the, Chris Evans Captain America. They are not the Tom Holland Spider-Man. They are more comic book accurate depictions of the characters. However, Disneyland has the Avengers campus. So they have the Tom Holland Spider-Man and Chris Evans Captain America. And actually, later this year, I think in summer, I don't know if you guys had seen, I think they kind of teased it on the Hawkeye program, the Captain America, the musical, or Avengers, the
Yeah.
musical.
Yep. Yep.
That is actually going
That's going to
to, the
happen.
whole entire musical is going to happen at
Yes.
Disneyland.
Yes.
Um, so Disney World is much larger. But Travis, you do bring up a good point. I don't necessarily think Disney World would leave. However, um, there would be a me personally, I don't think that it would happen right away. However, I wouldn't be surprised potentially if maybe a park opened elsewhere. And then, they started to shift resources towards that new park as opposed to Disney World. Because I mean, look at the Walt Disney Company for the last 100 years. Um, they've done business differently than all these other companies. They've maintained to keep things out of the public domain for a very, very long time. And now, again, just the wild thing about it is we have these usually right wing, your staunch Republicans like Taylor Green that are fighting with all their might to get Mickey Mouse into the public domain and away from Disney. They're out of spite. It's a fact. So um, I Walt Disney's a very powerful company. They're also one of the smartest. They're much larger than just an entertainment company.
Oh,
Like
they're
if
the
you look at
the
they're a conglomerate.
we're getting out of million range and into billion range. I mean, these guys. Think about merchandise. You mentioned making Mickey Mouse. I mean, think about merchandising alone. I mean, every holiday there's new Mickey theme of this or new Mickey theme of that or
Dude, Disney's not going anywhere.
no.
Like
And I
in the
mean,
grand scheme of
I
things,
I
Disney's not going anywhere for a long time.
and I think that in the grand scheme of things, I still think that Disney looks at Ron DeSantis as just a bug that they could stomp on if they wanted to. But we've been that so that this whole thing is formulated since mid-February, and we have yet to really hear a Disney response as to whether or not how they're going to approach this. And I
I don't think there's been a response because, quite frankly, I don't think they're actually worried about
no,
this.
they're not worried about it because they're like,
Now,
if they put
if DeSantis actually pulled a big move, I think then they would rush to action pretty quick, obviously.
I think he's just. I mean, this is
But
him. This is him flexing his genitals, and he's just trying to show.
I'm
Oh,
curious. I'm really curious what a DeSantis supporter or like someone who agrees with his stance would say about it. I wish I
it's
don't.
hard
I
to.
want to know what the other side of it is because
I thought
to
about.
me it doesn't make sense what he's doing. It
I thought about in, so I thought about inviting my brother who lives in Panama City Beach, and he actually works for the state of Florida. But since he works for the state of Florida, he didn't believe that it was in his best interest to be on the show. So I said, okay.
I could see
So,
that. Yeah, I could see
so
that.
but just off, and I don't want to mention his name or anything, but just off the record. I mean, he was DeSantis is his my brother is pretty much a dyed in the wool Republican, but he cannot stand Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, and it's kind of like what the Chicago machine. I mean, there's different machines within Florida that control. What is it? Broward County is a big Republican, and then, but the large Democrat, the only really major Democratic is basically Miami-Dade County, and
Yeah,
the rest of the
sure.
state, the rest of the state's pretty much red, and then you got Miami-Dade County. That's because you say, well, how are so many Republicans in that state? Think of the number of retirees that retired to Florida, and what base they make up. Those are lower Republicans. That's your Republican base.
And there's multiple cities, like
Yes,
multiple major
yes,
cities, as
yes.
opposed to Illinois. I mean, Chicago is like the major city. That's why
I mean, you've got,
it
I
controls
mean,
the state.
Tampa Bay is a
You got Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, you have
Jackson.
Orlando,
Those are
and I mean,
and those are all Republicanly. Is that the right word to say? Republican held cities.
we know what you mean.
Yeah, and this kind of goes and this and I want to add. I don't want us to lose. I want to touch on this. Just this. So the date of this article. So this was at the beginning of February, and I just caught wind of this today. This was just with some, I get people who offer stuff up all the time. Say, man, you need to talk about this on the podcast and this on the podcast and this again. So in on February the 8th, DeSantis had a quote unquote roundtable meeting. And the picture, and I think it's hilarious because if you look up this roundtable meeting, Ron DeSantis he's sitting around this, like, it looks like a news desk, and the picture they have him in, it says in the background, it says truth in big bold black letters on this blue background. It says truth, and the whole thing is about, and he hinted at this. He's been hinting at this bill, and apparently there is proposed legislation that has not been. This was, of course, in early February, about passing legislation that could lower the bar for prominent people to successfully sue news outlets for defamation. Okay, and this is based on the fact that and he's trying to change it to where you can't publish a news story with an anonymous source. Okay, that is when you think about all this late breaking news that comes out on any news network, what's one of the disclaimers that they always say, a source that does not want to be named. That's always like the little disclaimer that they always put with a source close to such and such, or a source not wanting to be named. And so what DeSantis is wanting to do is he's wanting to make basically a bill, first of all, that would, put restrictions on the publication of stories supported by anonymous sources. Okay. And, and he's like, well, what these guys are trying to, they're trying to throw interference, or they're trying to create actual, they're intending malice towards me or malice towards whoever. And we can't just run on these stories with unsupported, and DeSantis is a lot like Trump in the fact that he will distance himself from quote unquote mainstream media, but he has his circle of, I'm sure Fox affiliates who will love and come and talk to him. Okay. And the thing that angers me the most about this is utmost hypocrisy, because one of the things, and this is pretty much standard definition, standard text for Republicans these days is, well, this is what the mainstream media is pushing on you, this false narrative. And it's such a load of crap, because the the right-leaning media is just as guilty as anybody else.
They do the same.
They do the exact same thing. So and so to me, what this goes back to, you have a number of court cases that go back to, so there was a case back during Martin Luther King's Day. I got to think of the name of it was out of Montgomery during the bus strike. The Montgomery bus strike, and this newspaper chain had picked up, and I forgot who it was owned by, but started running these ads in the newspaper asking for money to help Dr. King's efforts. And this one of the Montgomery, Alabama politicians said, "Hey, they're printing false material in this ad." And the courts, when they appealed it to the Supreme Court basically said, "Okay, they're not really actually causing any malice towards you. This is helping to provide support for Dr. King." And so that's kind of been one of the leading cases as far as, cases like that. But I mean, there's been a lot of different, you know, the organizations that say freedom of the press. Now you can't obviously you cannot put print libel, any false or malicious use of printed word. You can't. I mean, the court has been very much saying you can't print libel, but the line of that goes back to what I was saying earlier. You have to prove the plaintiff has to prove malice in some way, shape, or form. Has to prove malice towards the individual in order for it to be considered slander. Whether it's defamation of character or if it's not. And I don't know. What do you guys? I mean, if this guy becomes leader of America, this is these two. So these two issues, and that's where this kind of ties in together. I want to kind of end with our last 10, 15 minutes together here. I want to tie these two together as we look at this guy as right now, probably, possibly being, when he officially throws his hat in the ring, he's going to be the front runner. What do you guys think? I mean, the whole thing with Disney, his corporate approach, and just with the press. And I mean, we didn't even talk about the "Don't Say Gay" thing, the "Don't Say Gay" legislation. What kind of, is this going to be like Trump 2.0, or is this going to be Trump light? How do you guys see this?
I see it a bit of a more as like Trump light, in a sense of they're going to come after DeSantis like they went after Trump, in the sense of, what about this policy? What about this policy? What about this policy? The difference between DeSantis and Trump is DeSantis is very articulate, and DeSantis is able to communicate where it's not just wrong. It's not wrong. It's not, the policies are great because they're good. They're great. They're the best policies this country's ever seen. No, DeSantis, he's a politician, a career politician.
Yeah.
So he genuinely understands how to break things down and to come to defense of his arguments. I mean, that I think that's why part of the reason why he's had the success that he's had is, the one thing I can say about DeSantis that I can't say for a lot of these other in the press, constant. There's a reason why, like, fucking Josh Hawley and Marjorie Taylor Greene, why some of these imbeciles on the Republican side are like in the press by Democrats, because some of the stuff that comes out of their mouth is very stupid constantly. However, DeSantis, if you look, like, they'll attack some of his policies, but they're very careful about how they attack him personally, because he's articulate and he's smart. And I think that's why he's able to, he's kind of taken the Republican Party by storm, in a sense where when it comes to election season, I would really hate to see, I would love to see him and Biden on the stage debating against one another. Because I do think it's going to be a long night for Sleepy Joe. And that's not because I think DeSantis is so good. I just think that when it comes to being articulate and having a message, DeSantis has always been clear.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you look at DeSantis has a lot of things going in his favor. His political, before he was governor, he was a member of the House of Representatives. I think he served 2 terms in the U.S. House, and then he, in 2018, I think is when he first ran for governor. And so this is his second term. When he got reelected as pretty overwhelmingly in the last election, he won reelection. And the other thing is, and I was just looking this up, he's 44 years old. Yeah. This is exactly what the Republican Party is looking for. Young blood. Young, and I mean, I'm 48. Okay, granted, I mean, there's days I don't feel young, but 44 compared to the average age of your Congress member right now the average age being 57, and the majority of your, newly bred or nearly dead is basically what you have going on in Congress right now. And this guy could be the young face that the young Republican can unite behind. I mean, your older generation, and I've said this many times, the older generation is going to line up behind Trump because he's a plain talker. To quote my 89-year-old father, he says what he's a plain.
He tells it like it is.
He tells it, verbatim. You just quoted my father. He tells it like it is.
Many people have made that quote.
And to me, the jury. I haven't voted for the last Republican I voted for, and I've said this many times, was Mitt Romney, and I had to hold my nose and do that when I did it, because Mitt Romney was more of a moderate. Mitt Romney was more willing to listen to the other side, whereas now you have the DeSantises and you have the Trumps. And I've from what I understand, there's a couple other candidates who have people who I've never heard of before have tossed their hat into the ring. So I believe we actually have about 3 or 4 candidates right now that are going to officially running for the Republican nomination. And to a lot of people, this is going to be, to me, this is an election that there's going to be a lot of political showboating. And this, like I said earlier, I think what is happening right now in Florida is because when you take on Disney, like we've established here tonight, you take on Disney, you are taking on this isn't just a Florida business, this is a national, worldwide conglomerate. I mean, this is media, this is amusement parks, this is clothing, this is, merchandising. And so he's doing that for political showboating. This, being able to sue people for defamation, this is going to grab him attention. This is going to grab him. And I think going after Disney, and I may be going out on a limb here too on this, but tell me your guys' opinion on this. Because Republicans have always been labeled as the quote-unquote friends of big business. So is this DeSantis trying to set him apart, saying, hey, look at what I'm doing against Disney. I'm not a friend of big business. I mean, this is, to me, as I was reading these were some of the thoughts that were coming into my head. This is a guy who's trying to say, I'm not a friend of, we're going to do what's right, and we're going to call these guys out, and we're going to do this, this, and this. I mean, that perception to me is what, this is just all part of political showboating.
I think it may be specifically big business that don't align with DeSantis' political agenda.
And that might hurt him in the end too.
I think it's specific. I don't, obviously, because look at Disney. I'll share my thoughts really quick. I think DeSantis I think he's very calculated. I think the guy's I think he's smart. I think he's competent. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he's really thinking out his strategy. I like the fact that he's younger. That's one of the things I actually do like about him. I wish we had some younger blood in politics, so it's nice to see. However, I could tell you right now, I probably won't be voting for the guy.
No.
I don't know. It's looking at these issues, and again, we've established a lot of it could be political showboating. I can't align with some of the stuff he's doing. And look, this whole far left woke ideology, whatever you want to call it, yeah, I'm not on board with a lot of it either. Some of it's kind of out there, but I think it goes both ways. Some of these super far right agendas too blow my mind. I mean, we're going to be talking about House Bill 301 next week, and on the surface right now, let me just say I'm blown away. Yeah. But we were reading into it before the show. We were going to cover it. We were reading into it before the show.
There's a lot there.
Realized there's a lot more to it than we realized. There's some amendments we were reading through, and it's like, hey, we want to do this topic justice. I think we're going to hammer that and kind of go on Second Amendment.
next week.
next
yeah,
week. So if there's anyone that wants to come on, I would love to have somebody who is super pro Second Amendment, and I would love to have somebody who is very much for gun restrictions. I want to hear both sides. As I shared earlier, I actually took my conceal and carry course this weekend, and very eye-opening, to say the least. I learned some statistics. I had a really good instructor who was very just had a really good perspective of things. Not, I don't know. I'll save it for next week, but it's going to be a good topic.
You did talk about young blood. I do want to bring this up, and I forgot to mention this to you guys earlier because this actually came up this afternoon on my news feed. We covered this at the Met Gala last year. You talked about young blood and politicians. AOC, Alexia or whatever Cortez from New York. If you guys remember, because I remember running graphics of this on our podcast last year. You guys remember the dress that she wore last year to the Met Gala that said "Tax the Rich" on it and all that crap?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a nonpartisan congressional oversight committee, or it's a group that investigates anything kind of controversial, and so this group is recommending to a House oversight or ethics committee to look into that, because as a member of the government, you are not to accept, gratis, whatever you want to call it, even if it was free. So the designer, I mean, they had all these interviews they did with her behind the scenes and everything. She got the limo to go to the event was provided for. The dress was a gift and was provided for by this, private individual who's for taxing the wealthy and all this other stuff. And so AOC, because you have a House dominated by Republicans now, you may see good old AOC get raked over the coals a little bit before the 2024 elections.
That wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Just, justice.
Right.
But please, if you have a differing opinion from us, or if you have anything you'd love to share, hit us up, message us. We love to hear all the different perspectives. That's what this show is all about. It's not just us coming on here and telling you what our beliefs are and that's the law. No, we really encourage open conversation. We want more people with differing views to come on. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to come on. So please come on. We're not going to attack you. We just want to have conversations. And I think having conversations like these on issues would solve a lot of problems if people talk with open minds and we're respectful.
Yep. We are respectful, and
just my 2 cents. We only say it every episode, but the point will get across eventually.
So anyway,
no, absolutely.
Sean, it was good having you back this week, pal.
It was good to be back. I'm excited to continue to rock and roll with the show. Next week, unless anything crazy
comes up. But when it becomes available, we need you to drop like little Easter eggs for us along the way of all these, great and wonderful things. So, I mean, and you got to let us know.
This project, I probably will not be able to speak about until there's a hard date. Yeah.
How is the loaf of bread in the oven right now?
Cooking. No, Tony actually went in for an ultrasound today. Got to see some videos of the feet kicking. She's kind of folded up like a lawn chair right now. Her feet are picking her nose, basically.
So this is it is a girl.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, so we won't have a third unit coming out of Tony that's like 1.5 feet long when it was born and everything like that. And
no, just gonna be stuck with. It's gonna be me and the dog. The only two fellas in the house,
swimming in the estrogen,
and both of us don't have our nuts anymore, so it's just gonna be.
Yes, because Tony carries yours in her purse. So
yeah, Tony doesn't even have a purse, and they weren't that big enough to fit in a purse. You got them like in a little coin, like a coin pocket. So.
Yes,
little marble.
Yeah, little marble bag.
dangles
Sean!
dangles him on the
I can't.
the rear view mirror in the car.
Now, when I get just for the record, I do want people to know that I will be visiting at the end of this month when Sean comes to the Midwest area for a wrestling show in Louisville. We will be visiting with the one, the only Matthew Edelman, and we may have to figure out some kind of, at least taping.
You guys should do like a little 30-minute or 45-minute conversation
just
down there.
Just to be able to
bullshit
get,
for like an hour.
I know, just to be able to get him on and just. We miss Matt, but Matt always apologizes for not being able to be on the show much anymore because the time difference. Sean is no problem because right now it's 10 minutes after 8 in Los Angeles, and it's 10 minutes after 11 in Louisville. So, but anyway, yeah. But it was good having you back this week, Sean, and definitely.
Yeah. No. Again. So excited for next week and then for the following weeks to actually be back in Missouri and hopefully catch up with you guys. So to our listeners again, thank you all so much. It was great to be back, and I can't wait for the next time we get to talk again. Be a friend, tell a friend. If you guys know or have any recommendations for who we should try to speak to next week about our subject, please feel free to shoot us a message or group us in a group chat together to kind of get that kicking off and underway. And hopefully we'll have a wonderful guest to kind of engage with. But that is all that I have.
I want to mention this too. So please check out this week's survey question too. We're going to carry that over for 2 weeks, and it is dealing with the topic that we are going to be discussing next week. Please, 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 if you have not voted yet on this week's poll, go to the group page, and we will be talking about those results next week as well.
And if you're pro-gun and you have some good insights, volunteer to come on the show. If you're against guns and you have some good insights, come on the show. Really, we want to talk to people.
Love to have you. Okay. See y'all next week.
That's all we got. See you guys next week.
Guys. Bye.
Bye.